Our hearts in every action of all our lives be always acceptable to you, Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. Question for you. What's the most important day in the Christian year? The central day. It's not Palm Sunday. It's not that easy to answer. But it's also not Easter or Christmas. The most important day in the Christian year is Good Friday. Think about it. Without Good Friday, Easter doesn't happen. Without Good Friday, the birth on Christmas is basically irrelevant. Good Friday is the central day, and it's one of those days in the church we tend to kind of slide by and not pay a lot of attention to. All right, Good Friday may be the most important, but today, Palm Sunday, I want to suggest to you, is the most direct. It's the most directly human day in the Christian calendar. If people were to honestly describe their Christian life, their spiritual life, most of us would be effectively describing Palm Sunday. Now, I mean, think about what we just heard. Consider what happened back then. The people of the city came out shouting in joy, praising, celebrating this man, this prophet Jesus. They were so excited. The people went so far as to throw their cloaks and branches of palm on the ground so that the hoofs of the colt would not even get dirty. They honored and respected Jesus that much. I mean, if you're having a hard time imagining that, all right, imagine for a moment, and as a Duke graduate, I hate to say this, but that Chapel Hill wins the basketball tournament this year. All right, imagine that. And imagine Chapel Hill, Main Street, when the team comes back. Can you imagine that? Well, take that and triple it, quadruple it. That was Jerusalem on the first Palm Sunday. They're shouting with joy, and then just a few days later, they're shouting with as much energy and volume to crucify him. Honor and respect one day, rejection and condemnation just a little while later. Now, I don't know if any of you have ever gone so far as to reject and condemn Jesus. Maybe not. Certainly some people in our society do so. Certainly many people around the world do so. But while we may not condemn him, I would not be surprised if people said that they'd been on the joyful end of the spectrum. That they said that there was a time in their life when they were shouting for joy, shouting with admiration, shouting in allegiance to Jesus. A time when we pledged our undying love and loyalty to Jesus. Or maybe if you didn't go quite that far. A time when you just knew you were clearly on Jesus' side. But even so, I suspect that if we are honest, we would admit to some dramatic swings in our attitude. I have to say that if I'm honest, I must admit to them. A dramatic swing from being a loyal follower of Jesus Christ to being one who at best ignores him. Now, if Palm Sunday is the most symbolically direct day in the Christian calendar, then Ash Wednesday is a close second. On Palm Sunday, we wave those palm branches around symbolically. We're welcoming Jesus into our lives. On Ash Wednesday, we take those very same palm branches, branches that have turned dry and brittle and brown. Also an interesting symbol. We take those very same palm branches and we burn them as as symbolic indications of what really happened to our spiritual lives. An honest admission that we failed to be followers of Jesus. I said Palm Sunday was symbolically important. I never told you it was a happy time. In fact, Palm Sunday is perfectly placed in our Lenten period. Lent is a time when we are to reflect on our Christian lives. It's good and it's very important to reflect on those times when we have lived up to our Christian vows. That positive reinforcement, remembering the best we can be, is important. That leads us on to even greater ministries. But an honest and sincere reflection is likely to identify other times, show us places when we have failed. And an honest and sincere reflection on Palm Sunday is likely to highlight the swings in our attitude throughout our lives. Now, maybe you cannot identify any times when you were anti-Christ. Okay, I can believe that. What about times you ignored him? What about times you were disappointed in God? Now, there's something you don't hear talked about a lot, especially from the pulpit. To be disappointed in Jesus? And yet, that's exactly what these first century Jews felt. Disappointment. They expected a Messiah to come who was a great Lord who would throw off the Roman occupiers and make Israel back into a triumphant state of freedom. They expected a true gift from God who could not be defeated. That's what they expected, and instead they got a common criminal who was easily killed by the Romans. Yes, they were disappointed. Now, that may not be our expectation, but maybe we expected Jesus to cure our loved one. Maybe we expected Jesus to take away our temptations. Or on a broader palette, maybe we expected Jesus to lead the people into ending hunger forever. Maybe we expected, and maybe we are disappointed, Jesus had not been more obviously active in our world. Maybe yes. Maybe our attitudes do swing back and forth. When I read the Gospels, I like to try to imagine what was going on. Try to picture it. Imagine what Jesus was feeling at the time. Now this is a very dangerous way to read Scripture. Let me warn you, because it's so easy to read something into it that isn't actually there. But in this case, I can't help but wonder about Jesus' reaction to Peter's denial. Given a chance to stand up for, simply to acknowledge Jesus, they aren't being asked if he's a follower. He's just being asked, do you know this guy? And he isn't willing to even admit to that. Peter, one of the central apostles, denies he even knows the man. And at that moment, we are told Jesus looked at Peter. That's all we're told. He looked at Peter. I can't help wonder what was in that look. Anger? That would have been very understandable. But my guess is Jesus knew human failings well enough to not be surprised. No. I picture Jesus with a look of deep, deep love, but also disappointment and deep sadness. Jesus knew human nature well enough to not be surprised at Peter, but my guess is Jesus was human enough to hope. And Peter shattered his hopes. So what I offer to you on this not the most joyful day on the Christian calendar. What I offer to you for the rest of this Holy Week, on a day where the Scripture unfortunately describes our spiritual life, on this day, I offer to you a question to ponder. What is on Jesus' face when he looks at you?